So today we will talk about lab diagnosis of viral diseases, how viruses they are diagnosed, and about various diseases which are caused by viruses and how they are diagnosed. So why there is importance to diagnose viral diseases? What precaution we should take before starting a diagnostic procedure? What are different diagnostic procedures and what are commonly used diagnostic procedures for diagnosing various viral diseases? This we will discuss today. Various diagnostic methods. Diagnostic methods are more or less same whether these are fungal agent or parasitic agent or viral agent. So we will start it from microscopy. Microscopy. Then second thing is we can detect viral antigen in patient sample. Then whenever viral diseases are there or virus enters in our body will respond to that. Immunological response is there against these viruses in form of cell mediated and humoral immunity. So as a result of humoral immunity, antibodies are produced. So this is an indirect evidence of diagnosing viral disease. So we can detect antibody detection also. We can detect antibody also in order to diagnose viral disease. Then there is nucleic acid detection as we are doing at present for corona diagnosis. Then if facilities are available in virology laboratories, cell lines are there, tissue culture facility is available, then we can grow the viruses in laboratory and we can isolate them and then we can report them. Then cytology is the procedure which is used in pathology department in order to diagnose viral disease. For example, in CSF, particular type of which type of cells they are increased, whether lymphocyte or neutrophil. If neutrophils are increased, polymorphonuclear cells are increased, this goes in favor of acute infection or bacterial infection. Whereas lymphocytes, they are increased in various type of fungal infections and tubercular infections and this viral infections also, monocytes, mononuclear cells, lymphocytes, they are increased. Then histology, this is again a diagnostic procedure in pathology department in order to diagnose viral diseases. Biopsy samples are taken up and then they are processed and then stained by various methods in order to see about immune complexes, viral antigen antibody immune complexes. They are seen in histology sections. So why there is now the question arises why there is a need to diagnose various viral diseases. We want to go for a screening of various viral infection. For example, blood donations are done. So we have to see whether this blood is free from any kind of virus or any viruses are there. So obviously we go for HIV testing, hepatitis B virus, HCV testing, then syphilis, they are bacteria. Syphilis is a disease which is caused by bacteria. So we test for that also because there are some diseases which are transmitted through blood. So from donor to recipient, they may be transmitted. That's why this is essential for us to screen that blood sample for various pathogens or various microbial agents. So in order to see whether blood contains any virus or not, that is a screening before blood transfusion. So we have to check for that. Then whenever there is a viral infection, then we have to isolate or we have to identify the etiological agent in order to find out the etiology. So that's why this is essential for us to diagnose this the particular viral disease. Then in some diseases, antiviral drugs are available. So in that again, this is essential for us to diagnose that particular viral infection. So in order to start antiviral therapy also, we have to diagnose viral infection. Then there are epidemic. Suppose now we are going through a pandemic. So again for that, whether this any outbreak is there or epidemic is there or pandemic is there, obviously there is a causative agent. So what is the causative agent? To find out that, again we have to diagnose viral disease. Then there are antigenic variation also in some viruses. Example, influenza viruses. So in order to prepare the vaccine against them, or in order to have control over the outbreak. This is essential for us to identify the virus, to isolate them in the laboratory, to grow them in laboratory, to identify about their nucleic acid sequences, about their antigens, and thereafter this can be helpful for us in order to prepare the kits and in order to prepare their vaccines. And lastly but not least, whenever there is a new viral infection, there is a question of diagnosing that. So for these are the reasons why this is essential for us to know about the viruses and how to diagnose them. So whenever there is a question of diagnosing viral infection, obviously we have to take sample. What sample to take? From where to take? Where to send? And what diagnostic modality to be used? And if there is a question of transportation, how to transport the sample? If there is delay in transportation, how to preserve that? What kind of testing has to be done? Which method has to be applied? And what are various kits which can be used to diagnose that particular viral infection? Now, these are some few examples. What sample to take in what kind of illness? Vesicular lesions, suppose they are there in herpes type of viral infection, vesicular lesions are there. So obviously what sample we take? We aspirate fluid from that and we scrape off material from base of the vesicle. Then urine, stool, sputum, bronchoalveolar lavas, body fluids, if they are to be collected, they should be sent in a sterile container. If we are taking swabs, throat swab, nasopharyngeal swab, as we are taking it for diagnosis of corona, then they has to be transported to the laboratory in VTM, viral transport media. If any delay is anticipated, that has to be we can keep that VTM at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade, means refrigerator compartment, up to 1 week. But if delay more than 1 week is anticipated, then obviously we have to put our VTM in at minus 20 degrees centigrade temperature. Then eye swabs or scraping material, if we are taking from patient, then they should also be transported to the laboratory in VTM. VTM is what? Viral transport media. Bone marrow, if we are taking for viral diagnosis, that has to be transported to the lab in EDTA or heparinized vacutainer. Tissue, if we are taking again for virus, that has to be transported in VTM. So I think now this is clear what sample to take, how to transport the sample, and if any delay is anticipated, where to keep that sample. So what do we do with all these sample which we receive in the laboratory? The first step obviously in each illness diagnosis is microscopy. So light microscopy we can do, electron microscopy we can do, fluorescence microscopy we can do. Now we should we take one by one. Light microscopy. What are the uses? We can't see viruses with help of a light microscope. What we require? We require electron microscope in order to visualize viruses. Why? Because viruses, they are in nanometer size. Bacteria, they are in micrometer size. Viruses, they are quite smaller than bacteria. So we require, in order to visualize them, we require electron microscope. Then what is the use of light microscopy? There are inclusion bodies which are nothing but viral aggregates inside the tissue or inside the cell. So we can see inclusion bodies in the cell with help of light microscope. And if any cytopathic effects are caused by viruses, that we can see under light microscope. And various cell lines, their arrangement, if we want to see, then again we can take help of light microscope. If any histopathological slides are there for viral diagnosis, then again we can use light microscope for that. And sometime we have to do immunohistochemical staining. In that also we can use light microscope. So basically light microscope is not to visualize virus as such. They are very small in size. They are in nanometer size. We can't see them in light microscope. But inclusion bodies, cytopathic effects, various cell lines, where histopathological sections, they can be visualized in light microscope. This is example of intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies which are found in rabies. Rabies, how we diagnose rabies? This is a viral illness caused by a RNA virus. And in this virus illness, the viruses, they form inclusion bodies which are known as Negri bodies inside the cell. You can see dark bodies here, intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies. These bodies we can see with help of light microscope. In a smallpox, Garnier bodies are there. Foulpox, Bollinger body, Molluscum contagiosum, HP bodies are formed. All these are intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies and we can visualize them with help of light microscope. There are intranuclear inclusion bodies are also. There are inclusion bodies of both type also. So you go through the book, find out, read about the book, inclusion bodies, different types, in which disease, which type of inclusion bodies are formed. And this is a good MCQ question also with name of inclusion bodies. So you read about this. Now we would come to fluorescence microscopy. Fluorescent microscope is a special microscope in which instead of light, as we are using in light microscope, source of light either sunlight or bulb, light bulb is used. In fluorescent microscope, the source of light is UV lamp. UV lights, they are taken up by dyes and they are converted into the fluorescent. They are emitted and as a result of that, fluorescence will be there. So this is the peculiarity of fluorescent microscope and fluorescent dyes to convert UV into visible lights. So when we want to diagnose mycoplasma, mycoplasma is a bacteria, but some properties are similar to the viruses. So in order to identify that, sometime we grow the viruses in laboratory and thereafter we want to see their after effects, then we use fluorescent microscopy. Sometimes herpes lesions are there. So in direct lesions, whatever scrapings are taken from vesicles, so we go for fluorescent microscopy of that, direct immunofluorescence. Rabies, again by immunofluorescence we can diagnose, and sometimes respiratory infection like RSV, respiratory syncytial virus infection, can again be diagnosed by fluorescent microscope. So fluorescent microscope is also helpful in diagnosing various viral diseases. But for that, fluorescent microscope should be with us, and dyes used are, instead of those dyes which we are using commonly in our lab, fluorescent dyes are required. Clear? This is how the picture look like in fluorescent microscope. This is a fluorescence microscopy of brain smear, and you can see like stars are shining in the night, shining in the sky in night, like that. Bright illumination will be there and apple green fluorescence will be there depending upon the dye what we are using. So this is fluorescent microscopy of brain smear in order to diagnose rabies infection, direct immunofluorescence. This is electron microscope. How does it look like? Electron microscope. This picture I have taken from NIV Pune. I went there for 1.5 month training on viruses, and during that I took this picture. A separate room is required in that electron microscope is there, and only expert person can do electron microscopy. And for electron microscopy also 1 year certificate program is there. So that virologist, only the virologist who has taken training in this electron microscopy is eligible to do or able to do the microscopy, not each and every. So trained personnel are required in order to perform electron microscopy, and a special room is there for electron microscope, and the sample has to be processed according to that, for electron microscopy. A special processing of sample, special staining is required in order to visualize viruses in sample. So this is only available in sophisticated virology laboratory or only in reference centers or centers, not in each and every laboratory. Electron microscope, they are available. So this is not a feasible method of diagnosing various diseases, because the microscope is not available at each and every center of medical college. See, bigger look of this. You can see in this room only this electron microscope setup, and monitor is also there. So we can see picture in monitor also instead of that visualizing directly in the electron microscope. We can have picture at monitor. We can record the pictures also. I would like to talk few words about inverted microscope before proceeding for cell culture. Inverted microscope, as the name indicates, you can see the picture. See the picture. Objective. Where is the objective? Where are the lenses? Where is the light source? Inverted microscope is a microscope in which light source and condenser, they are on top. Means reverse to that what you are using in your routine. In routine light microscope you are using, in that light source and condenser, they are situated below the stage. But here they are on the top, and they are on the above the stage, they are on the top, and they are pointing towards down, while the objective and turret are below the stage pointing up. It was invented in 1850 by J. Lawrence Smith, and this inverted microscope is basically used to visualize the cell lines which we are using to grow the viruses. Again, this type of microscope I have seen in NIV Pune. So inverted microscope, they are useful for observing living cells or organisms at the bottom of a large container such as tissue culture flask under more natural conditions than on a glass slide. So as you have blood culture bottle, you must have seen blood culture bottle like that, flat bottom bottles are there, and in that the cell lines, they are prepared. Then the sample which is suspected of having virus in that, that is inoculated in those cell line, then incubated at 37, then after some interval, means say 2 days or 3 days, take out the bottles and visualize them under inverted microscope to visualize any CPE, cytopathic effect, which has been caused by that particular virus. A particular virus causes particular type of cytopathic effect. So different type of cell lines are there, different type of CPE are there, different viruses causes different type of cytopathic effect that I would like to take in my next lecture.